Hello, everybody. Drasco here from 10knorm.com, where my main mission is to help heart-centered entrepreneurs who know all the business strategies normalize their next business milestone by mastering what's between their ears. And for today's episode, we have a real talk segment where I bring in a heart-centered entrepreneur who isn't seeing the consistent, stable growth in their business. And then live on the call, I get to help them break down one specific aspect most overlooked in business strategy, which is that at the inner aspect. And for today's guest, we have Jody Aberdeen, who is an enthusiast and who is into a lot of different things that are hard to put into a single category. But in terms of, the things that he would describe himself as: author, ghostwriter, mindset coach, podcaster, dog owner, plant guy, foodie, and professional dilettante, right? Those would be the worthy candidates. So I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. I always had issues pronouncing that word. But regardless, Jody, thank you very much for being on. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Jasco. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. And yeah, there's a lot of things. I think what we'll be talking about is my mindset coaching today. It seems to be the main focus of my attention lately. So
that is totally fine. That's exactly what we do here. But before we kind of dive into all that, why don't you just going to give us a bit of an overview on like kind of who you are, how you came to doing what you do, kind of what's your story and your background to just kind of contextualize everything. And then certainly we can dive into those aspects.
Sure. Thank you. So I'm 41 years old. I have grown up in Southern Ontario down the road from you. And I've been living in the Hamilton area for the last little bit. Mindset coaching, I've always been a multidisciplinary type of person, very interested in the world, very interested in how everything works. And personal development has been with me to some degree since a couple of lonely days in the high school library where I just happened to, I picked up a copy of the Celestine Prophecy and then I was like, whoa, what is this? And then that led to another book and another one and another one. And so it's been kind of in the fabric of my life for a while. In my 30s, I had contemplated having read so many books and having worked with coaches, I was contemplating becoming a coach myself, but I decided to spend a bit of time in the world, right? Like I don't want to just be too academic about it. A lot of the coaches I'd observed back then were just kind of reblogging and resharing the same content over and over again, not being very critical about it, right? Not really seeing if you can test it. I think it's a New York author named Mitch Horowitz who writes about occult studies and such. He said that the real test of a new thought principle isn't when you're doing well; it's when you're really doing badly. And so a lot of people were kind of not very doing well, and suddenly embracing these principles. That's what I want to see, right? So and that's what I wanted for myself. So I spent a few years, so years passed. I worked in different industries. I worked as a ghostwriter for a long time. I still kind of do, just don't have any clients at the moment. But last year, during lockdown number two, a friend of mine who runs a personal growth company in Toronto did an online NLP based session, like a group session. It was very controlled. They did all the ethical things that they needed to do in order to make it work for a group. And I followed along right here where I'm sitting. I followed along and I had such a tremendous experience that kind of pulled me out of the kind of rut I was in, the winter rut, but gave me a vision of what I could be. And so I said, I want to learn how to do for other people what you guys were able to do for me. So I took on the certification course. I didn't have that much money. They made an arrangement for me. It was really great. Very generous of them. And, they said, hey, you, if you can sell one of your, these packages, XYZ packages, you'll make up the investment. I got my certification. I think we finished in May. And I realized that I was being called to do something with the millennial cohort. Thinking that, as a 41-year-old in 2022, I'm on the, we're now in our 40s as millennials. And we ourselves are dealing with a lot of stuff at the same time that we have to contend with the big challenges of our age. And my basic thinking was, how would I coach about it? How do I want to coach? And it's, I want to take my company's called Extraordinary Joe Coaching. It's not my name. Like it's not named after me. I don't think it's the same way we can't see the back of our own heads. I don't know how helpful it is to kind of just claim yourself to be extraordinary. That's a title that others give you. But it's named after the ordinary Joes, right? J-O or J-O-E's, whatever, however you spell that, who are out there in the world, just in our millennial cohort, trying to do the best that they can, and who could use some of that same mindset coaching or those same types. They have the same limiting beliefs. They have the same stuff and same wounds that many of us are dealing with, but they're ready to kind of get past them so that they can fill up their own cups and then have it in them to kind of contribute to addressing those generational challenges. So slow roll, figuring out the messaging. I work part-time. I got 2 part-time jobs, and like in late summer to pay for it. I didn't want to burden the business with money making just yet, because I also wanted to do it right. There's a lot of little things I wanted to kind of correct that I've seen in the coaching industry. I'm sure every coach has their own version of this. And leading up to today, I finally gotten to a point where I got I got some testimonials from some demos that I did of the services. And that it was really great. So I know I can do it. I know that it works. I wanted to make sure that I was fine tuning it. And I think we'll probably get into that a bit later. The masking thing was not what I'm dealing with. Having taken your course are 2 masks, actually. One is the tolerating survival, which we were saying before the call. I'm so glad you named it that, because it just sums up exactly what the feeling is, as well as the mask of preparation, I think it was called. Yeah. Trying to get everything, excuse me, trying to get everything right the first time, and a bit of that perfectionism. So these are the kind of things that I'm dealing with. And I also want to commend you as well for reaching out to me, because one of my original goals was a 10K month. And as a matter of fact, it was a 25K month. And so this has kind of brought back some of that thinking and some of those considerations of what's possible. And where I'm at right now is taking a bit of a slower roll in January. We locked down, as you know, for 3 weeks, a month actually. So my 2 part-time jobs were kind of right. Money-wise, I'm getting by for the month of. I'll have enough to pay my rent in February, but not long after that. I would like to get out of this cycle of like, okay, we got to hustle to make the rent and make all the bills at the end of the month. I got to market, but then I'm too burnt out to market for a week, and then then I got 2 weeks to kind of level up. Oh no, rent's due again. Then I got to come back and do the whole thing over again. 10K a month not only solves that, but it transforms my life, and it makes sure that I'm able. I actually have the means and the backing and the security to then go and do some of the things that I want to do that actually costs real money, and not just not barter or something like that, right? So that's where I'm at right now in terms of this, and so I'm really excited to see what comes of this of our conversation.
Absolutely. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing that and so nicely weaving it into like what you see as the challenges in front of you. So just to kind of make sure that, I've heard you correctly and, I'm receiving everything well. So it seems like you're at this point where, I've tried a bunch of different things. I kind of know the direction that I want to go into, and nothing seems to really be kind of hitting its stride. And I'm in this rock and hard place of like, I got to navigate it, but still got to pay my bills. And I'm now recognizing, as much as I don't like the consequences of this, I actually am comfortable here because it is so familiar, right? So it might not be like comfortable, but it is familiar. Like I know this life more than I know what it's like to make like 10K a month, And because I'm so needing to get out of this place, I want to make sure I do everything right so that I can get out of it and just like hit it out and start like living my life. So is that about accurate?
Yep, that's very accurate. Like the one sort of specific example, I'm so sorry about the dry air. One specific example that I can mention is my actual content writing, like to support my coaching. The perfectionist in me had me want to write a full sales letter, which I'm almost done. That should be done after this call. I'll be working on it. To lay out everything that I do and then take that content and repurpose it. But I put that off for 2 months when I got the suggestion to do it, right? And the idea of the sales letter, of course, being that when you can articulate everything that you do, how you do it, who you serve, what the services are, etc., put it all there and why the person should buy from you, then you can that's your core message. You can then use that as the basis for everything else. I tend to market primarily through Instagram and my local chamber of commerce, as well as local networking. It really took, in a weird way, the lockdown, where I can't go. I work in the craft brewing industry. I can't go and sling beers for people for a couple of weeks. So I may as well just sit here, right, and get that work done. But when we reopen, I'm going to have to because of the loss of revenue, I'm going to have to go back and make all that money. So this is my narrow window of opportunity to get these things done that I've been putting off for so long. But it's take like 2 months to write a letter that when I finally got to it, maybe the first draft is like an hour, right? And I think one of the elements in your course had mentioned this, something about not just perfectionism, but kind of taking it slow, a little excessive caution, if I'm not mistaken. That's something that I've definitely run into as well. And I know that if I were to, and the idea that perfecting the target niche, right? And it is another thing too. I want to reach people who want to do coaching a bit differently. So there's a marketer, I don't know if you've heard of him, named Tad Hargrave. He runs marketing for Hippie. So I hopped onto one of his calls. I love his stuff. He's really neat. I hopped onto his sort of free Thursday call, right? And I've been following him since. And he said on one of his posts that sometimes you need to create or become the type of person you wished you'd had, right? As a coach, my style is very, it's very craft brewery like. It's very like, it's the guy sitting down. It's like, I'm not necessarily in optimal health, but I'm an ordinary person. I eat fast food from time to time. It's like I want to reach ordinary people who might be a bit skeptical about the wellness aspect, right? About the idea that you got to be a green smoothie person, or you got to do yoga or karate, right? It's like, I do karate, I do a lot of these different things, but I don't lead with that image, right? It's kind of blue collar coaching, I guess you could call it. And to enroll people who I know would benefit from this work, but who don't resonate with some of the more bumper stickery types of messaging that we tend to put out. So locking onto that is an additional challenge. And I also like the thoughtful aspect of it. This also gets me to that overthinking part, because I want to emphasize like the thoughtfulness. Like I, for example, right, I didn't create a program to latch on to the new year, new me thing, because I have this kind of ethical hang up where it's like, you get people who are very excitable about at this time of year. And so a lot of coaches will go in and say, okay, well, here's a program, you can do this while you're excited, right? And then they spend their money. That the resolutions typically have a lifespan of 2 or 3 weeks for most people. Maybe the coach offers them some stuff, maybe they don't. Maybe if the coach is effective, they keep going through that. But if the coach is not effective, they've taken their money, the person's resentful. Sometimes the goal that they set turns out not to be the goal they actually wanted. They just kind of set something in the heat of the moment, but they've already paid a coach, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't want to do that. But a lot of the business marketers, they're kind of like, why didn't you do that? That was, the market with conditions were right. It's like, because it didn't resonate. Right. I want to get people when they, I don't want to get people, first of all. That's the wording that I'm concerned about too. It's like, I want people to connect with me when they're truly ready, out of their own volition, without me having to manipulate them or play on whatever it is that they're doing. So that notion of attraction marketing, I think that they call it, it really speaks to me.
So
I could go on. I'm not sure if I've answered your question.
no, that's
Yeah.
fair. And
Yeah.
I guess what I would reflect back to you in that instance, like, okay, so there's a lot of self-awareness with regards to like, okay, I can see the aspects that are playing, in kind of my patterns, right? Like it's not like you're, blindly unaware of like what's going on. You can see some of the patterns there. What I would want to reflect back to you though is all I'm hearing is like reasons why things can't work.
Mm.
So how does that land for you?
It's reasons why I'm not taking the action. Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh, I can't market at this time. I can't market to get people. I can't write this thing, but then it took me an hour, even though I waited 2 months to like do it. I can't launch this business until I pay my rent. I can't, it's like there's all of the reasons on why you can't do stuff. And it's like one after the other, after the other, after the other. And each one makes sense and each one is, very nicely articulated. But it's like how much mental real estate is going towards why you can't do stuff.
Quite a lot. Yeah. I like I'd say I'd only counter with a teeny thing. It's like I know I can. I have the templates, right? In terms of like I could have like in terms of launching a program, I've got the stuff on Canva drawn up. I just don't. I think for some
Right.
of yeah.
So I mean, potential is not going to put money in your bank.
Yeah.
So is that just another way to placate, like, oh, I'm not doing it, but like I can, so like it's okay. So, here we go back again to being comfortable in the scarcity of like I'm just tolerating survival.
Yeah, actually. Yeah. Yeah.
So what's coming up for you then as I reflect that back?
So I'll be transparent. Resistance.
Absolutely, yeah. No,
Yeah.
nobody likes to admit that piece,
No.
but kudos to you
There,
for, yeah.
yeah, there
So
is resistance.
what's resisting that? And tell me more about like what do you feel internally? What's coming up as far as your thoughts?
What I'm feeling internally is it's not wanting to do what's been done by other people in this industry. It's wanting to do things differently. It's wanting to be original about it. And even as I say that, I know it's, can I swear on this or
Yeah.
is that
Oh,
yeah,
by all
I
means,
know
yeah.
I know it's bullshit. Because like in my ghostwriting trade, it's the same thing, right? Like because every so often I'd be ghostwriting fiction. So I've read up on the fiction things. They say people want to be originality is kind of a trap. Originality is a procrastination trap in disguise. So, but I just kind of made that connection in my coaching too. It's like, well, the reason why we do it the way that we do is because it works, right? Otherwise, people wouldn't be into it. So this originality thing is just another hangup.
Correct. So it really goes
Yeah,
back to, again, it's another well articulated reason for why I can't do something. Well, I can't coach because it's not original enough.
yeah, and I think like, but even with niching, right? When you niche, your niche doesn't care about your originality or not. They only care what you're saying to them, what they, what the reach is. It could be this, if to you it might be the same stuff because you're saying it over and over again, but to them it could be brand new.
Right. And
Yeah,
right now, are you
yeah.
articulating for why you can't do something, or are you articulating why you can do it?
No, I can actually do it. Like that's now I'm articulating for what I can do. It's just I'm talking in real time as things are flying through my head. Yeah, so it makes no difference. I forget that there's other people sometimes. I'm getting out of my, I mean, it seems silly to say, but I forget that not everyone thinks what's in my head, or that what I believe is not necessarily the entirety of what's out there, because I can't perceive everything. So what seems repetitious to me and unoriginal to me may be just brilliant for somebody else who needs to hear it and who would want to learn more.
Yeah, I would agree. So
Yeah.
then what's that got to do with you moving forward?
Well, now I can just say what I want to say.
So what is the real gap then between where you are and where you want to go?
So I'll tell you what's going on in my head. There's a lot of bullshit stories, actually. It takes a coach to bring this out too, by the way. It's like, so this is, it's really nothing. It's been caught up in that bullshit cycle.
So, okay, elaborate a little bit more on that. What do you mean by that?
Well, none of this stuff matters, really. I mean, if I'm not actually doing it, if I'm not putting myself out there consistently.
Correct.
Yeah. Like whatever excuse, like it really boils down to excuses. And I know in the heart-centered space, we don't like using that. It seems harsh, but it is the case. And for myself in this case, it's like, whatever the reasons are, if I have a disagreement on, say, like how something is done, well, then why don't I just do it differently?
100%.
Why am I lingering on the fact that I don't like this, right?
Yeah, I would agree with you
Yeah.
100%. And just
Yeah.
to kind of reflect it back again in a different way,
Yeah.
like you don't have a fixing problem, you have a resistance problem. And what I mean by that is you've spent so much time articulating, looking for, focusing on, meditating on, journaling on, observing on what needs fixing internally and externally. What do I got to fix about myself? What more do I need to find out? What more awareness do I need? What more techniques do I need? What the world needs fixing on, like what the industry needs fixing on, how I need to show up, like fixing, 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 fixing. The real issue isn't that you need to be fixed. It's that your main pattern of when you run up against any kind of resistance that would actually move you forward. So I want to move forward. There's that part of me that resists change. It hijacks what my strengths are, which is you have this good intellectual capacity to articulate things. It hijacks that and moves me to look at what needs fixing. So at that point, I never actually have to do anything, right? So it's like you're very good at identifying what needs fixing. You're absolutely horrible at working through your resistance and actually doing the actions that are going to move you forward. Mostly identified in this conversation by this, ghost or the sales page that took me 2 months to write, so I could sit down and write it in an hour. Right? Like it's 2 months of resistance for 1 hour of production. So when you then look back at yourself, it's like, okay, if everything that I've manifested in front of me is a lagging result of my focus, that's because you spent 2 months looking at what needs fixing and how it can't be done or shouldn't be done or which way is the better way to do it, versus 1 hour of doing it. How far ahead would you have been if you just spent that 1 hour for 2 months, more or less every day? Would you have needed, to go back and wait till lockdown's over so that I can go back to my job at that point? Maybe not, but like guaranteed now you do.
Yeah.
Right. So how does that land for you?
Yeah, that lands well. The story I had for that was, well, I want to sit and contemplate and grow the ideas. But when I wrote the sales letter, 90% of the content is stuff that I thought of 2 months ago, that like 3 months ago, right? It's like, it's not like I was waiting for some new ideas to germinate or anything like that. That was the story I was telling myself, right? Up until yesterday. When I actually wrote it, I'm just like, there's almost nothing here that I didn't think of, 2-3 months ago. So that was bullshit too. It's like if I just written it, I would have had the foundation of my content a long time ago. I would have been able to market, right? I would have had it. I would have removed another excuse, which also, by the way, is I don't have the content. Yeah, because then that becomes a thing. It's like, oh, I have to do this now. It's going to take so long. I would have removed that excuse a long time ago. I would have gotten some more clients.
100%. And I think
Yeah.
the degree to which you want to face those bullshit stories is the degree to which you're going to move forward. And the speed at which you want to face those bullshit stories is the speed with which you're going to move forward. But I think as far as like, what do I need to do to move forward? It's not more fixing. It's actually more ignoring the voice to fix and more just like Neanderthal doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's going to be that's the work. And I'm already feeling the impulse to get into my head about it.
Yep, because that's your default. That's I've repeated this thousands of times, but I've repeated the work, 10 times. Right now, momentum is going against you, which is fine. And what I invite you to take away from this conversation is like it's going to feel uncomfortable to go against the default. That's why it's so hard for us to change. That doesn't make it any less needed to actually move forward. So if you recognize and are aware of it now, right, always go more Neanderthal because your capabilities intellectually already built up. This muscle, like I'll just call it the Neanderthal muscle, just like do the thing. That one is quite atrophied, right? So anything that's quite atrophied, it's going to hurt. It's going to be uncomfortable when you actually do it.
Huh. Never thought of it that way. Okay.
All right. So I know that was kind of quick, but I just want to, because I mean, there's only so much we can do in a container like this. So I just want to be conscious of like, does that feel complete for you, or is there still something left outstanding?
So, I mean, I've been in my head for a long time. I tend to live there. It can be a dangerous place. So I mean, the rest of because this is a coaching session, I want to honor that and not just spend time talking about theory. But that's the only thing is like just talking about theory that I could think of, because now I know the thing to do is just to do it. And do you run into this a lot where other coaches, when you're coaching coaches, they end up saying something like, what's funny is that I coach my clients to do exactly what you've coached me to do, but I don't see it. Do you run into that a lot?
Yeah, kind of like that sentiment of like, if you can spot it, you got it.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So this is me on the receiving end of the same type of advice I would give somebody else.
100%. It's oftentimes more fun on this end than on the receiving end, but it is that same sentiment. Yes, you're correct.
Yeah. So I think what's to be done, I think what I will actually get about doing immediately after this call is well, I have to take my dog out, but I'm going to schedule my work, which I have been putting off because I need to put a structure in for what I got to do. So I'm going to hit up my calendar and make sure I schedule what I got to get done for tonight, not tomorrow. And now what's going through my head too is if I was coaching somebody else now, what would I tell them to do? I would tell them to do exactly what I'm going to do, which is schedule my own work and get it done and do it now, as opposed to like wait an hour and then go to Netflix before the resistance kicks in again. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do.
Perfect. I think that's a very solid plan. So in that case, just to then close this container, if you could just summarize in your own words, kind of like what your experience was like going through this, what your key takeaways were, just kind of wrap it up in your own words to close us off.
Yeah. So Dreska, thank you so much. First of all, you're effective as fuck, man. I mean, geez, like, and at the same time, but you don't zero. I didn't feel like the apprehension I had going in was like, when I learned of your background and working in fitness, I was just like, oh no, it's like, it's going to be a drill sergeant approach. Right. But that's not you. You very directly and gently at the same time landed on my bullshit, figured it out, and did so with a lot of empathy. What I also love is that I know you're looking at the camera, but I was looking at your eyes, man. It's like that. It's like you're coaching me directly. So the receiving end of that was very effective. I actually believe I can, and I spent the morning, I think I mentioned at the outset of the call, thinking about a 10K month. It's right there. Seems a lot closer now than it did even before this call. So thank you.
You're very welcome. And as I said before, appreciate you coming on, because I know it's not easy to, do this, but to do it publicly is like another level
Yeah.
to it. So I appreciate you for that. So
Yeah,
then if you can just, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I feel a little guilty. I feel like I should have given you more resistance so you could demo your coaching. No, you
That's
were on
okay.
point. Yeah, you were on point. So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever comes up comes up. If it's resistance, if it's ease, I'm good with both of it. So
Okay.
yeah, that's not a problem at all.
Cool.
Yeah, so in that case, just let everybody know, what's the best way they can find you, who's the best person to find you, and we'll kind of close that at that.
Okay, wonderful. So if Extraordinary Joe Coaching, all one word, on Instagram is the single best place to find me at this point. If you want to check out my website, it's really a placeholder for the other links that I do, but it's jodyaberdeen.com.
Beautiful. Well, thank you very much. And for everybody else listening, we'll see you on the next one.
All right.